Hi, this is Nemesis Stars, and I'm in this video. I'm going to talk about more info that happened in Shadow's story 50 years ago. Now, there's one person I didn't talk a lot, mostly about, and it was basically to do with the arc 50 years ago, and it was also to do with what exactly happened, like who could have been in charge of G.U.N. And other speculations, that possibly happened, linking to other sorts of people, which end up in other media, like other sorts of like TV shows and whatever. So I'm going to link it all together, and you'd probably see why and such. So the first thing I'm going to basically mention is who exactly was in charge of G.U.N 50 years ago. So I was basically scaling down the ages of Towers. Now, Towers would have most likely been a child by the time the arc got shut down. So that's basically when the arc basically got invaded. So most likely, since Towers would have been a bit younger than Maria, he would have been younger. So he wouldn't have known about this until he heard about it, that Maria got killed. So he probably didn't know about it until the arc got invaded. So he probably got told then. So this is basically how you would know that Towers did not invade the arc. And there's reasons to that, because he was too young. And he was not in the military back then. So it makes a lot more sense that he wasn't in there, apparently, but there was another, that most likely was in charge. So this particular individual we know nothing about, unfortunately. Sega haven't confirmed, who actually was in charge 50 years ago. So we know nothing, at this point. We know nothing about this random person. I question it sometimes. I think, could it be male? Could it be female? I don't know. But most likely, I think it could be a male, that could be in charge of G.U.N back then. So whoever was in charge back then made a terrible choice, was too impatient, invaded the arc and whatever, without thinking. Yeah. So this one person actually threatened, so I don't think this person knew about Maria, at that time, because I don't think he knew her at that point. He probably knew Shadow and Gerald, because, Gerald was creating Shadow, so he most likely knew them, but not Maria. I think Gerald kept a secret, so then they'd know nothing about her, and they wouldn't harm her, but no. Okay, so apparently all that didn't really come to plan. So basically, G.U.N had a rookie, that actually was in the, service, and he was very stubborn, didn't really listen to, orders. His order was to bring Shadow and Gerald in. That was his orders. And he intended to shoot Shadow, also Maria. So when you skip 50 years later, now take Sonic X, right, in the timeline. Now there is a character that actually fits that stubborn description. Now I can't remember his name, but he felt guilty afterwards, and he did quit the military, because of what he did. He regretted his actions for killing Maria. Because of that, it led to a lot of issues. Like Shadow wanting revenge on humans because of that one guy killing Maria. So basically, when you think about it, Shadow, I think, is on a quest to find the one that actually killed her. Now, I don't think Shadow would back down if he found this rookie. So that rookie would end up dead if Shadow saw him, after knowing he was the one that shot her. And yeah, Shadow would not back down. Yeah, he would hurt him bad because he did kill her. Okay, so now that I've explained that part, so apparently, yeah, a lot went on. I mean, Gerald didn't really like the whole thing going on with Maria. You know, she died. I mean, you know, basically, again, the person that was in charge of G.U.N 50 years ago was an asshole. Yeah, he basically just wanted Shadow. That was it. Now, there's a lot to Shadow. Now, the first creation Gerald actually created was actually Biolizard, but he kept it behind closed doors. Didn't show it at all. So that was a failure. Now, Shadow, on the other hand, was his second creation he made, but he had problems with his chaos powers. Shadow was unable to control it at that time, because, you know, Gerald didn't have enough time to fully control Shadow's powers. Well, to get Shadow to control it better. Also, Shadow's DNA was a bit complex, because it was to do with too much chaos energy in his body. But nobody actually taught him as a mentor to control that power. Now, there's a reason to that, because he didn't have somebody with chaos powers that could actually show him how to control it. Okay, so apparently there's other sorts of chaos users that could eventually teach Shadow, so then he wouldn't get exhausted from too much chaos energy. Now, there's actually special users that actually could do that. Now, there's Chaos. Chaos is actually a god of destruction, but he turned good, so he would be a good fit to help Shadow to control his power. Since, you know, he's got chaos energy, and such, so there's that. So, I think Chaos would be a good mentor, to Shadow, since he's that good at it. I think Chaos is the only one, I think, that would be useful, that sort of thing, I think, because he has a ton of power, so it would feel right, and after all, some power was actually, taken, from, chaos energy, so that means that chaos energy comes from chaos, when you think about it. So yeah, basically there's a lot of story around Shadow, like a ton. Especially, I also basically reckon that also part of the energy came from Black Doom as well, so making Shadow's powers unstable. Because it was a combination with a Mobian and a Mobian creature. So nobody knew where this Mobian thing came, where this Mobian DNA came from. Well, yet. Basically that is, to be discovered, I think. Nobody really knows that much about that. I'm guessing Shadow would have to do some digging, to discover that. I mean, there is a lot of progress, a lot of story that could be told with Shadow, explaining more on where his DNA came from, which would make a lot of sense, and also explaining which Mobian exactly it came from. when you think about it, because DNA would have to come from a species, in a way. So Gerald must have got it from somewhere. Even though he had the DNA of, Black Doom, it basically mixed with that, also mixed with some, from Chaos, so that's like 3 things mixed. So yeah, so apparently, so basically I still think a lot of story could be told with the arc, I think. There's a lot that has to be explained, in the whole story as a whole around Shadow. I mean, again, we still don't know a lot about, the 50 years ago G.U.N. story, because there's, again, like I said, there's a lot to be explained. Like, we don't know who was in charge, and that's something we'd want to know about, because it keeps us guessing until we know from Sega who was actually in charge back then. So I'm basically guessing the person that was in charge of G.U.N. was not a very nice person, which makes sense, because if you basically watch the fan movie of Shadow the Hedgehog, called Project Shadow, it basically would explain that the owner of G.U.N. back then is not a nice guy. And I can explain that again. Because when you play Shadow the Hedgehog, again, the military in there are not very nice. And it's because of the one in charge, the commander. So he's too bossy, he rushes things, basically that's, so basically that's just the commander. I mean, again, we need to know more about him. So, maybe one day either Paramount or Sega might actually give some insights on the commander. Like, who was actually in charge. Because I know for definite, Towers isn't related to Maria, he's just a best friend. So, could the commander be Towers' father? Maybe. Could it be his uncle? Maybe. Could it be his grandfather? We don't know. So, yeah. So apparently we'll probably know years later, or sometime in the future, who actually is in charge. So, yeah. So apparently if I find any more information or whatever, any confirmed information in the future, I will make a video about it, linking it to everything I've said so far. So yeah, see you in future videos, and yeah.